Hi, I'm Dr. Chuck Betters. This is Ask Dr. Betters, and I welcome you. It's great to have you. As we address tough questions, questions that you ask, we try to do so from the perspective of Scripture. I wrote a book some time ago called Teaching Them Young, which was written in the context of the first 9 chapters of Proverbs. You may or may not be aware of this, but the first 9 chapters of Proverbs were given so that a father may teach his children certain biblical principles before they reach the age of 12 or 13. In other words, these were chapters that were written for parents' instruction to give to their young children before they became, according to the Jewish mindset at least, an adult. One of those chapters is in Proverbs chapter 6, where the father is teaching his child about sexual purity. And so the question is this. Let's just assume for a moment somebody is in love. They want to get married. They're in love with a particular person and maybe even engaged. How far sexually is too far before marriage? Well, we need to understand what the limitations are sexually according to the Scriptures before one marries. Well, there's all kinds of stopping points along the way of a sexual relationship. Someone can be lured into serious temptation just by holding hands, or from an innocent kiss, or from a physical embrace, and on the list goes of the things that will cause us or lure us to the next level of sexual involvement. I think that varies from individual to individual, but there is a cutoff point, a stopping point, where we begin to enter into either fornication or adultery. Proverbs chapter 6, the father is to instruct his children. He says, "My son, keep your father's commandment. Don't forsake your mother's teaching. Bind them always on your heart. Tie them around your neck. When you walk, they will lead you. When you lie down, they will watch over you. When you awake, they will talk with you." Get the picture of a surrounding sort of instruction that is to be a child's instruction, whether he's waking or sleeping or walking or wherever he is. He's to memorize and meditate upon the instructions that the Father gives. He says, "For the commandment is a lamp, and the teaching a light, and the reproofs of discipline are a way of life." So now he gets into the specific. He says all of these are given in order to preserve you from the evil woman. And of course, the reverse could be the evil man. From the smooth tongue of an adulteress. Usually, adultery starts with flattery. Usually, it starts with the starting point is we talk. We say things to each other. We talk about the other person's beauty. See this all the time, especially with sexual predators. They lure people into their web with flattery, with smooth speech, with talking about their physical characteristics. We see this all the time. You're a beautiful woman. I've never seen anybody like you. And we're flattering with our lips, and that's usually where the downward spiral begins. It's just pure talk that is designed to be sexual, but talk that lures with flattery. He says, "Do not desire her beauty in your heart." In other words, you're beginning to lust after another person because they physically turn you on. Now that can happen at any point, in any relationship, at any time along the way. It happens especially after you're married. Why do you say that? Why do I believe that the temptation is even greater after you're married? Listen closely. One of the questions I like to ask couples before they get married, and it's a direct question that I ask them: have you had a sexual relationship up to this point? If the answer is yes, and if they're honest, then I ask them if they're willing to seek forgiveness from their husband-to-be or their wife-to-be, because in essence, what we do premaritally is we defraud one another. My task as a man before marriage, the woman's task in her life before she gets married, is to increase the intimacy of the other one with Jesus. In other words, I am to make the woman I am with, I am to make her become even a better believer, a stronger believer, with a greater understanding of what holiness looks like. And if I don't do that before we get married, then I've allowed Satan to plant seeds of distrust into the marriage. Those seeds of distrust are just that, they're seeds. Satan plants them. We have a sexual relationship before we marry. We have things that lead us into that sexual relationship. We refuse to see the downward spiral. Maybe it starts with speech and it ends up with kissing, and then beyond that, touching, and beyond that, a sexual relationship. We allow those seeds to germinate before we get married. Satan plants those seeds, he walks away. And it's years later, months later, years later, whatever, he comes in and he waters those seeds. This is after we're married now. Those seeds were planted before we got married. He comes in after we're married. He waters them. They germinate. And all of a sudden, we have a distrust of each other. We don't know where it comes from. We don't know where it came from. We don't know how it happened. Well, I tell you, it happened even before you got married, because you planted those seeds of distrust by violating and defrauding one another. That's why it's important to recognize what is it in a premarital relationship that causes you to lust, to want to go to the next level. Now, let me see if I can make this as clear as I can. If you're planning on getting married and you're involved in a relationship with somebody you're planning on getting married, I would worry about you if you were not sexually tempted. Of course you're going to be tempted sexually, of course. But you have to see the bigger picture here of what Satan is trying to do. He's trying to lure the two of you to bed. Whatever that crossing point is, he's trying to lure you into a sexual relationship, which is called fornication before you get married, adultery after you get married, and then plants those seeds of distrust, walks away, and sprouts them years later. So I encourage you, if you're already at that level, you need to turn away. You need to move back. You need to seek each other's forgiveness. Make a commitment to one another. I mean, couples over the years have come to me that were already living together. Sexually, it's the common thing today. People don't want to get married anymore. They live together, but then suddenly they say, well, you know what? Let's make the commitment to get married. And the first thing I will do when I talk with them is to ask them to separate for a period of time, maybe 6 months to a year. Sexually separate, seek each other's forgiveness, clean the slate, so to speak, and start building a relationship that is much deeper than the physical relationship. And that is the spiritual relationship. How can I make you a better Christian? How can I be an agent, a conduit of God's grace to make you even more committed to the Lordship of Christ? How can I do that when I'm drawn to you? I want you, you want me, etc. How can I do that? By denying myself. And that's why he continues. He says, I want to preserve you from the evil woman, from the lips of an adulteress. Do not desire her beauty in your heart. Do not let her capture you with her eyelashes. For the price of this kind is a loaf of bread, but a married woman hunts down a precious life. Can a man carry fire next to his chest and his clothes not be burned? He later goes on to say, can you walk on hot coals without your feet being burned? So will you be burned? Or will you be cooled off to the point where you are causing each other to spiritually grow? So how far is too far? It's too far when you are desiring the next step, when you're desiring to go even further. When the lust in your heart is conceived, brings forth death. When the sin is conceived in your heart, it brings forth sin. Sin, when it is finished, brings forth death. That's the picture that Proverbs paints. I hope this helps.
Hi, my name is Melissa Weisenfels, Executive Director here at MARKINC Ministries. Thank you so very much for your continued support of this video series. Ask Dr. Betters is not meant to be a substitute for professional counseling, but instead is designed to extract biblical principles around the questions being asked. We encourage you to seek professional counseling if needed.